Hi, I'm Anastasia, and today I want to talk about something that affects so many women, yet deeply misunderstood: narcissism in relationship. Before we begin, I want to be clear. I am not a psychologist and I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I study psychology and I've been in therapy for many years. And I've spent a lot of time learning about narcissism and relationship dynamics, both through established research and personal experience. Everything I share on this channel is grounded in psychological research and clinical literature, combined with real life experience. My intention is education and awareness, helping you to recognize patterns so you can protect your emotional, financial, and psychological well being. Let's begin. What is a narcissist? When psychologists talked about narcissists, they don't mean someone who is simply very confident or full of themselves. They're describing a specific dysfunctional personality patterns that affects that how a person thinks, feels, and behaves in relationships. The clinical term used is narcissistic personality disorder, (NPD). A narcissist typically shows grandiosity, believing they're superior, better, or more important than others, a strong need for admiration, lack of empathy, entitlement, exploitation when they're using people to get what they want, very fragile self esteem, and arrogance or envy, looking down on others, or feeling threatened by their success. To meet a full clinical diagnosis, a person must consistently show at least 5 patterns across relationships and situations. So, in simple words, a narcissist is someone who depends on other people to feel good about themselves. They lack empathy and uses relationship to maintain their sense of importance, which often makes those relationships unstable, one-sided, and emotionally damaging. Why this matters? Because this behavior is not random. It's not mood swings, and it's not about you. Narcissists don't relate to people as equals. They relate to people as supplies, source of validation, admiration, attention, or control. Understanding these helps women to recognize patterns instead of blaming themselves. Why are narcissists so dangerous in relationships? Narcissistic relationships are dangerous because they follow a very specific psychological cycle, one that is emotionally addictive and deeply destabilizing. This cycle has 3 main stages. First one is love bombing. At the beginning, they overwhelm you with attention, affection, future plans, and promises. Everything feels deep, fast, and very magical. From psychological perspective, this creates a dopamine and oxytocin surge, the same chemicals involved in addiction and bonding. Research shows that the brain gets attached not to the person but to emotional high and then started chasing it again. And I want to be honest here. I personally fell into this love bombing phase with my ex multiple times, and each time it felt convincing, sincere, and real. And it was not until the last time that I fully woke up, understood the patterns, and decided to speak up, which is why this channel exists today. Second one is devaluation. Once they sensed you emotionally attached, the mask began to slip, usually slowly, step by step. And this is where you start seeing criticism, emotional distance, passive aggression, silent treatment, blame shifting, and gaslighting. You feel confused and start working harder, trying to return the version of them you met at the beginning. In my case, silence and emotional withdrawal we used as punishment. Whenever I asked questions, trying to set boundaries, or express that something hurt me, I was met with distance, blame, or being made to feel like I was too much or the problem. That constant self-doubt is not accidental. It's a part of the dynamic. Third, discard or recycling. Eventually, they either leave abruptly or emotionally detach, sometimes without explanation. And then, often, they come back with apologies, with promises, with tears. In my experience, my ex could disappear, leave the city or even country after the argument. And by argument, I mean me reacting on his disrespect while he positioned himself as the victim. And these back and forth create what psychologists call trauma bond, a powerful emotional attachment formed through intermittent reinforcement. I will explain it later. And that is why these relationships are so hard to leave, even when you know something is wrong. How narcissists act in relationships. Here are the most common behavioral patterns researchers consistently identify in narcissistic relationships. Lack of empathy. This isn't about being incapable of understanding emotions. It's about being unwilling to respond to them. Narcissists can recognize when they hurt you. They just don't prioritize your feelings unless it benefits them. In my experience, when I expressed pain or discomfort, it rarely led to care or repair. Instead, my feelings were ignored, minimized, or treated as inconvenience. Entitlement. Narcissists believe they deserve special treatment, even when they haven't earned it. In my relationships, there were many moments when something hurt me and I was expected to simply accept it without reaction. Not only that, I was often expected to remain warm, affectionate, and supportive afterwards. When I didn't, I was punished with distance, silence, or emotional withdrawal. And that expectation that someone should tolerate harm without response is entitlement, accountability avoidance. Taking responsibility threatens narcissists' fragile self image, so they avoid it at all costs. Instead, they rely on gaslighting, blame shifting, minimizing your feelings, excuses, or projection. I experienced all of these patterns repeatedly, and over time it becomes emotionally exhausting because no matter how calmly and clearly you communicate, resolution never actually happens. Emotional manipulation. Rather than communicating openly, narcissists often use guilt, hope, and fear to control relationship. You're made to feel guilty for having needs, afraid of upsetting them, hopeful that if you're patient enough, things will change. And that emotional instability keeps you invested. Future faking. Future faking involves promises of commitment. Marriage, moving in, shared plans, children, without real intention to follow through. These promises creates emotional security in the moment, even when behavior in the present doesn't match the words. It keeps you attached to potential, not reality. Image management. Narcissists care deeply how they appear to others. They may be charming, generous, and attentive in public, but cold, distant, or dismissive in private. These contrasts create confusion and self-doubt. If everyone else is such a good person, maybe I'm the problem. Rage or defensiveness. Because this self-esteem is fragile, even mild feedback can feel like a threat. And instead of listening, they may respond with anger, defensiveness, withdrawal, punishment through silence. Healthy communication feels dangerous to them. How women get trapped. Empathetic, emotionally intelligent women are often the most vulnerable to narcissistic dynamics. Not because they're weak, but because they lead with trust, depth, and emotional openness. Here how the trap forms. First, they mirror your ideal partner. Early on, narcissists study your dreams, values, wounds, and desires. Then, they reflect it back to you, becoming exactly what you've been hoping for. This creates a powerful sense of connection and recognition. But it's important to understand that mirroring is temporary. It's a strategy. Second, they build rapid emotional intimacy. The relationship often moves very fast. Deep conversation, intense vulnerability, big declaration of love, and early future plans. This speed creates what feels like soulmate energy. Psychologically, however, healthy intimacy develops gradually. Third, intermittent reinforcement. This is one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms involved. Intermittent reinforcement means that love, affection, and approval are given unpredictably, sometimes intensely, sometimes withheld. And your nervous systems become conditioned to crave the good moments, to tolerate the painful ones, to stay alert, hoping the warmth return. From the brain perspective, this activates the same reward system involved in gambling and addiction. The unpredictability makes the bond stronger. 4. Self-doubt through gaslighting. Gaslighting causes you to question your memory, your emotional reactions, your perception of events. And one time you may start explaining the behavior away. Maybe I misunderstood, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I provoked this. This erosion of self-trust keeps women stuck. Because if you don't trust your own reality, it becomes nearly impossible to make clear decisions. 5. Isolation. Isolation doesn't always happen through direct control. More often, that happens subtly. Emotional disencouragement, criticism of friends, creating conflicts when you prioritize others, draining your energy so you withdraw naturally. And over time, your world becomes smaller, and the relationship becomes your primary emotional anchor. 6. Shame and silence. Many women stay silent because they've been conditioned to blame themselves. Thoughts like, what if it's my fault? Maybe he didn't mean it. I shouldn't have reacted that way. There is also deep shame in accepting the truth, that someone you love and trust can treat you in a way that causes harm. That realization is painful, and avoidance often feels safer than facing it. Types of narcissists. Psychology identifies 4 dominant presentations of narcissism, although people can show traits from more than one type. Grandiose or overt narcissist. This is the most recognizable type. They are loud, confident, and charismatic. They are openly self-centered and highly focused on status, success, and admiration. They thrive on attention and validation and often dominates relationships and conversations. This is a classic look at me narcissist, usually easy to spot once you know the signs. Vulnerable covert narcissist. This type is much harder to recognize. They often appear quiet and introverted, insecure or misunderstood, emotionally sensitive on the surface. Underneath, however, there is often strong sense of victimhood, passive-aggressive behavior, guilt-based emotional manipulation. They gain control not through dominance, but through pity, emotional pressure, and subtle manipulation. Malignant narcissist. This is the most severe and dangerous type. Malignant narcissism combines narcissistic traits with aggressive and antisocial behavior. Common features include cruelty and lack of remorse, enjoyment of control and harm, revenge-seeking behavior, and near complete absence of empathy. These individuals often cause intentional psychological, physical, and emotional damage. Communal narcissist. This type presents as caring, generous, and morally superior. They often position themselves as helpers, healers, seek admiration for being good. They need recognition and praise for their generosity. Their kindness is conditional. It exists as long as it fits their self-image. The focus is less on genuinely helping and more of being seen as a good person. How to protect yourself. If anything you heard today feels familiar, please remember. A narcissist doesn't love you. They love what you give them. Validation, attention, financial support, emotional labor, status, or admiration. You can't fix them. You cannot love them into empathy. Their behavior is a pattern, not a phase. The most powerful thing you can do is learn, observe the red flags, and choose yourself, even when it's hard. You deserve love that is consistent, safe, and real. If this resonates with you, please subscribe to this channel. I will be sharing more psychology-based content about narcissistic dynamics, relationships, healing, and rebuilding your sense of self. And if you know a woman who might need this, please share this video with her. Sometimes awareness is the first step toward freedom.